In this video, we will have a look at how to use functions using PowerFX. PowerFX is the low-code language that is used across the Microsoft Power Platform. It's a powerful, human-friendly language that enables makers and developers to work together seamlessly, regardless of their experience level. We will create a function for our question mark icon so that when we click it, it will bring us to the tutorial screen. First, let's have a look at some example formulas of the existing properties of our controls. By selecting the plus icon, we can edit the properties in the formula bar. The current property selected is onSelect, and we can see in the formula bar the actions linked to it. The formula new form with edit form 1 in brackets and navigate with edit screen 1 in brackets performs two actions. New form resets the form identified as edit form 1 to a blank state, allowing the user to enter new data or make edits. Navigate navigates to the screen identified as edit screen 1, which is the first parameter in the brackets, and the second parameter, none, indicates that it will navigate to edit screen 1 without passing any parameters. This typically means switching to a different screen for viewing or editing data. If we now click on the right arrow icon, we see that the formula for the onSelect property changes to select parent. This formula is used to access the parent or container control of the current control or item. It is commonly used within a gallery or a data card to reference the parent control or container that holds the current control. Selecting the reload icon, we see the refresh function, which refreshes the data source table named students. If we select the question mark, we can see we have false, which means there is no action attached to the onSelect property. We will assign a navigation function to our question mark, so let's have a look for this in the Microsoft PowerFX documentation. Let's search for navigate. We'll learn how to change which screen is displayed in a Power Apps app using the back and navigate function. Most apps contain multiple screens, and we can use these functions to navigate between them. To change the screen when a user selects a button, we can set the onSelect property of the button to a formula that includes a navigate function. We can also specify a visual transition, such as fade, to control how one screen changes to another. It's important to note that back and navigate only change which screen is displayed. Screens that aren't currently displayed continue to operate behind the scenes. If we scroll down to the bottom, we find a step-by-step guide on how to use this function, with an example formula that we can copy and paste into our own solution. I'll make sure I have the question mark selected. When we paste it in, we will get an error because the code we pasted in is generic, and we need to amend this with the correct parameters for our context. If we select this X, we see we have two options, edit in formula bar and get help for this error. Let's get some help on this. On the right here, it shows us that the issue is to do with the name. In other words, screen 1 isn't correct. We can see in the formula bar that this has been underlined with a squiggly red line. We need to change this so that it navigates to our tutorial screen. When we start typing tutorial, the autocomplete menu appears, and so we can go ahead and pick the first from the menu. I can test this directly in the studio by holding down the Alt key on Windows and the Option key on Mac while clicking on the question mark icon. This brings us to the tutorial screen. Let's test it out using the preview option. And we see the same result here. Clicking the question mark icon now navigates us to the tutorial screen. Let's take a deeper look at the syntax for the navigate function. I'm going to paste in the syntax again that we got from the documentation. If we hover the cursor over the navigate function in the code editor, a tooltip appears, showing an example usage. So, just to recap on some of these, target specifies the target screen we want to navigate to. It can be either a screen name or a screen object. Transition is optional. It defines the transition effect between screens. It can be set to none, fade, cover, or uncover. As an optional third argument, you can pass a record that contains the context variable for the target screen. In this example, we are using the navigate function to move from the current screen to screen 2 with a cover transition effect. With this effect, the new screen slides into view, moving right to left to cover the current screen. Let's change this to fade and see what that looks like. The fade effect is quite subtle, so the video here is slowed down slightly. Next, we'll have a look at building the formula using the FX drop-down menu. It provides a range of functions and operators that can be used to create dynamic formulas and expressions. With the FX drop-down menu, you can perform mathematical operations, handle text manipulation, apply logical conditions, and access data from different sources. We can find the navigation function under the Action category. I'll double-click on this. We can now build our formula with the help of the tooltip and the autocomplete. Let's choose the cover right transition and see what that looks like. Nice! Note that when we navigate to our tutorial screen, we currently don't have any way to navigate back. There are multiple ways to implement this, but for the sake of this lesson, we'll create a button that brings us back. I go to my Insert tab and search for Button. I'll select and drag it over. We can drag it around our canvas to place it where we want. I'll change the text from Button to Browse. Again, we use the Navigate function, and we will choose the Browse screen to navigate to when the button is selected. When we preview this and click the Browse button, we can see that it brings us to the Browse Student screen. If we wanted to learn more about the use of specific functions, we can access the documentation easily from within Power Apps. Simply click on the FX drop-down menu and click Learn More here at the bottom. This brings us to the Power FX formula reference page. Because I selected New Form, it brings me straight to the letter N in our index, where I can find Navigate and New Form. If I click on New Form, I will find the relevant information for that function. Now let's give our app a final test. I'll click on the preview. Clicking the question mark brings us to the tutorial page. I can scroll through the tutorials by clicking the right arrow. Browse is going to bring us back to the Browse screen. And the other functions, such as the plus icon, were already built automatically when we connected our data. Let's add a new record. By clicking on the right arrow for more details on this record, we can go in and edit the details for that record by clicking on this pen icon. I'll change the name to Joe Blogs and update it. To delete the record, click on the right arrow and then the bin icon. That brings us to the end of this lesson. In the next lesson, we will go over some of the other features in our App Studio dashboard that we haven't spoken about yet.